An infantry fighting vehicle, or mechanized infantry combat vehicle, is a type of armored fighting vehicle used to carry infantry into battle and provide direct fire support. The Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe defines an infantry fighting vehicle as an armored combat vehicle which is designed and equipped primarily to transport a combat infantry squad, which is armed with an integral or organic cannon of at least 20 mm caliber and sometimes an anti-tank missile launcher. Infantry fighting vehicles are distinct from armored personnel carriers, which are transport vehicles armed only for self-defense and not specifically engineered to fight on their own. Consequently, they possess heavier armament and the attached rifle squad fights mounted more often than in an APC.IFVs also often have improved armor, and some have ports which allow the infantry to fire personal weapons while on board. They are typically armed with a 20 to 40 mm caliber autocannon, a coaxial machine gun and sometimes anti-tank guided missiles. IFVs are usually tracked, but there are some wheeled vehicles too. IFVs are much less heavily armed and protected than main battle tanks, but when equipped with larger cannon or ATGMs may pose a significant threat to all but the heaviest armored fighting vehicles. History. The first mass-produced IFV was the West German Schützenpanzer 12-3, which served in the Bundeswehr from 1958 until the early 1980s. The SPZ-12-3 mounted a 20 mm autocannon in a small turret and carried a half squad of 5 armored infantrymen. Western powers were surprised when the Soviet Union paraded the BMP-1. In 1967, the BMP possessed a very low profile and was armed with both a 73 mm smoothbore gun and an AT-3 Sager ATGM, making it the first combat vehicle with mounted cannon and missiles in addition to a mounted infantry squad. Its steeply sloped front armor offered full protection against NATO's standard 50 caliber machine gun and partial protection against a 20 mm Lycon autocannon, both in a 60-degree frontal arc, while its armament posed a threat to lighter NATO APCs and even main battle tanks. Soviet infantrymen could thus enter a hypothetical engagement in a vehicle that possessed formidable fighting capability in its own right. This brought combined arms integration to the lowest tactical level. In 1971, the Rattle was designed to a South African specification for a wheeled combat vehicle suited to the demands of a high-speed offensive that combined maximum mobility and firepower. The emphasis was on mobility in particular, as it had to keep pace with a rapid mechanized advance and cross hostile ground quickly. South Africa's motorized units had carried out prior deployments on unprotected Bedford Mk and Unimog trucks, but these were deemed unsuitable for the harsh African terrain. They also offered few advantages in mine protection, while the Rattle's blast-proof hull was developed to withstand even the most catastrophic anti-tank mine explosions. During the South African Border War, Rattles equipped with a 90 mm gun adopted from the Eland 90 were utilized as improvised tank destroyers to varying degrees of success. After the BMP and the Rattle, several other countries followed suit in embracing the concept, including the United States, which adopted the M2 Bradley, the United Kingdom the Warrior, and West Germany the Marder. Other examples include the Japanese 89FV, the Chinese ZBD-97, the Indian Abe, the Canadian LAV-3, the Spanish ASCO Pizarro, the Italian Dardo, the French AMX-1 Opian VBCI, and the Swedish Combat Vehicle 90. In most Western IFVs, the comparatively large smoothbore guns on the BMP and later variants of the Rattle have now been discarded in favor of smaller caliber autocannon. while the former enjoyed a tank-killing capability that most autocannon lack. Their low rate of fire and mediocre individual accuracy offset this advantage. Combat applications in close combat environments are likely to drive up survivability requirements, necessitating the same protection level required by most tanks. Doctrine: in times of asymmetrical warfare, local crises, and urban combat, the IFV is more important than ever. The IFV offers a viable compromise between mobility, protection, and firepower. They can be used in high and low-intensity conflicts as well as peacekeeping operations. The latest vehicles, like the Patria AMV, have been designed with an emphasis on modularity that improved their ability to be repaired in the field. Design: infantry fighting vehicles are typically well armored, although usually with less protection than main battle tanks. Typical armament is an autocannon and machine guns. IFVs have a door for dismounts. Protection: generally, IFVs have thinner and less complex armor than tanks to ensure mobility. Most IFVs are resistant against heavy machine guns, artillery fragments, and small arms. The IFV's mission does not include anti-tank duties except in support of tank units or in emergencies, therefore, it needs less protection from heavy weapons fire. Instead, the IFV, as its name implies, is supposed to carry riflemen and the weapons into the battlefield where they dismount and fight outside the vehicle with the support of the IFV's main armament. In IFVs, the thickness of armor varies widely between models. Some vehicles are proof against 50-in bullets, while others, such as Sweden's CV-90 and Russia's BMP-3, can withstand frontal hits from 30mm autocannon. The sides, roof, and floor of IFVs have thinner armor. Vehicles must also protect crew against anti-personnel mines and against anti-tank mines. Newer vehicles like the Finnish Patria AMV use armor made in interchangeable modules of various thickness. This permits the vehicle to be tailored for particular missions such as decreasing the weight of vehicle for air transportation or strengthening the protection if it engages in dangerous missions. The latest models of the Russian BMP-3 use the Arena active protection system that protects the vehicle from missiles and rockets with velocities from 70 to 700 meters per second. Israeli IFVs will soon employ the Iron Fist, which can defeat kinetic APC/IFVs tank rounds. The most common countermeasures are smoke grenade discharges. These help IFVs to avoid attacks from ATGMs by providing a smoke screen. Some vehicles, such as the French VBCI, employ infrared jamming flare dispensers. These are effective against missiles with IR guidance systems. The term heavy infantry fighting vehicle is often applied to IFVs that are as heavily armored as a main battle tank. An example of HIFV is the Russian T-15 Armata, which is based on the same chassis as the T-14 main battle tank. The Israeli Ne'ma is based on the Merkava IV main battle tank chassis and, although officially an armored personnel carrier, does have the capability to be equipped with an autocannon in a remote unmanned turret, thus making it a true HIFV. Weaponry: the primary weapon on most IFVs is an autocannon, usually of a caliber between 20 to 40 mm, although the BMP-3, ZBD-97 and -4 Bermudian dollars carry a 100 mm gun launcher along with a 30 mm autocannon. It is effective against a wide range of targets such as unarmored and lightly armored vehicles, infantry, helicopters and low low-flying aircraft. It can fire several types of munitions, including high-explosive, incendiary, and kinetic penetrator rounds. Germany's Puma and Sweden's CV-90 can fire airburst munitions that contain hundreds of tungsten rods that are effective against vehicles, helicopters, and stationary strong points. IFV cannons can elevate the barrels by as much as 70 degrees to permit their crews to engage aircraft. On many IFVs, a coaxial machine gun is mounted on the turret along with the main armament. The most common caliber is 7.62 mm, usually in form of 7.62 x 51 mm. NATO is 7.62 x 54 mmR. Some vehicles mount more machine guns. For example, on the German Marder, one machine gun fires from the rear of the vehicle, and the Russian BMP-3 has two machine guns mounted in the hull facing forward. Many IFVs utilize firing ports allowing infantry to fire without leaving the protection of the vehicle. Some IFVs are equipped with anti-tank missiles. These missiles are mostly medium-range, though some such as 9M117M1R can has a range of 5,500 meters. Others may carry surface-to-air missiles or a combination of the two, such as the 2T Stalker. Some new vehicles, such as the BTR-90 Puma, come equipped with 30, 40, 76, or 81 mm grenade launch. Most IFVs also have a smoke grenade discharges for concealment. Mobility. Some IFVs are amphibious and air transportable. A few, such as the Soviet BMD series of the Chinese ZBD-2000, can be deployed by a parachute system from aircraft directly into battle. Wheeled IFVs can travel great distances on their own without needing to be transported by flatbed trucks and railway, as required by tracked IFVs. Tracked IFVs need to have the tread serviced or replaced on a regular basis. The tracks themselves and the weight of the IFVs tend to be tough on-road surfaces, wearing them down more quickly than a wheeled IFV. Many wheeled IFVs can extract themselves from a battlefield with specialized run-flat tires when not operating in difficult terrain, while an IFV with damaged tracks would require its tracks repaired in the field or an armored recovery vehicle to tow it out. However, tracks cannot be punctured like a tire, so more difficult to immobilize. A weapon that destroys a track will do significantly more damage to a wheeled vehicle. Tracks also offer far greater off-road mobility, greater obstacle climbing capabilities and greater maneuverability than wheels. Unlike a wheeled vehicle, a tracked vehicle will not be stopped by a spike strip or roadblock. A tracked vehicle can reach places a wheeled vehicle cannot. As IFVs often operate alongside tanks, being tracked means that the vehicle can go everywhere that the tanks go, which a wheeled vehicle could not. In this case, wheeled vehicles would either have to take another route, or the tanks would have to stay where the wheeled IFVs can go and drastically limit their own tactical mobility. Tracked vehicles can attack and operate from and in areas which a wheeled vehicle could not, which is a great tactical advantage. A wheeled vehicle is limited to roads and less difficult terrain, which may enable the enemy to predict where they will come from. Generally, therefore, tracked vehicles have greater mobility except on roads where wheeled vehicles have a greater top speed. Many countries only use wheeled armor for support functions or low-risk peacekeeping missions, whereas combat functions are performed by tracked vehicles. A compromise between wheels and tracks is the band track, which combines some of the advantages of wheels and tracks. The mobility offered by IFVs is an asset in close combat, especially against fixed artillery. American military simulations in the 1980s concluded a 3 to 5-fold increase in artillery defense effectiveness when IFVs were deployed. Throughout its life cycle, an IFV is expected to gain 30% more weight from armor additions. This complicates the design by requiring additional power.